In almost every company that I work with, the concept of firefighting comes up. Almost always there is some project that is in crisis mode and for which part of the organization needs to be mobilized in order to deal with the crisis and put out the fire. The good news around firefighting is that it works, at least for the crisis itself. You pull together the most capable, talented resources and you bring them together, tell them to solve the problem, and typically that this works. The problem, however, is that it has disastrous consequences for the company as a whole. And there are at least three of those. The first is hero culture. When the organization has a culture where the people that manage to fix the crisis are celebrated as heroes, the entire organization is basically reminded of the fact that fixing crises is something that the organization really appreciates and rewards, whereas what you instead want to have is a culture that avoids crises to happen in the first place. The second is that it very easily leads to a lack of commitment. In organizations that have a lot of crises ongoing and a lot of task forces and other things, people are randomly pulled out of projects and put into these crisis teams or task forces or whatever you call them. And in that case, it becomes very difficult for those people to actually do that job and their regular day job as well. So what happens then in practice is that everyone has an excuse for not having done the things that they have committed on in their day job, and that leads to a general lack of commitment in the organization. Overall, the interesting thing is that the third consequence of this is that it leads to a reduction in competitiveness for the organization. Typically, a firefighting situation is concerned with an individual customer that has a particular concern or issue that gets escalated. And what happens is that a lot of resources are being dedicated to an individual customer rather than applied to efforts that will have the benefits of multiple will have benefits for multiple customers. So what you get is that companies that get into a firefighting mode tend to end up in a situation where they're actually less competitive than what they would be otherwise. So concluding, what I think is very important is that firefighting may seem like the right approach. It is also extremely addictive, but in the long run, and if you take this over all the initiatives and concepts that are ongoing in the organization, it is disastrous for the company as a whole. And I think it is critically important that you build a culture in your organization where you work hard to avoid situations where firefighting is required. So avoiding crises is much better than jumping on the fences whenever a crisis has appeared.